The saint who chose silence, the hidden strength of Saint Conrad of Parzam. Sometimes the loudest miracles happen in silence, and sometimes the holiest people are the ones we barely notice. Tonight, I want to take you into the life of a man who spoke little, prayed much, loved quietly, and carried the world in his hands without anyone realizing it. A man who lived in the shadows of a monastery doorway, yet opened the doors of heaven for thousands who met him. This is the story of Saint Conrad of Parzam, and maybe it's also a story about the quiet corners of your own life, the ones God is using even when nobody sees. Saint Conrad was not a priest, not a preacher, not a scholar. He was a simple Capuchin brother, the porter of the monastery. Yes, the porter, the man who opened the door. But oh, the way he opened it. Conrad was born into a farming family in Bavaria. He was quiet, gentle, and deeply devout. His mother died when he was young, and that early sorrow carved a tenderness in him that never left. He grew up working the fields, but his heart belonged to prayer. Eventually, he joined the Capuchins and was assigned the simplest job in the monastery. Brother Conrad, you will be the porter. Most people would have felt overlooked, dismissed, hidden away from the important work, but not Conrad. He turned a doorway into a mission. He turned interruptions into opportunities to love. He turned every knock into a moment of grace. From early morning until late at night, people from everywhere came to the monastery door. The hungry, the tired, the sick, the confused, the angry, the poor, the wealthy, the broken. And to each of them, Brother Conrad greeted with a smile that had no judgment, a kindness that had no conditions, and a patience that had no limit. There is a story, one most people have never heard, that reveals the heart of this quiet saint. One freezing afternoon, a woman came to the door in tears. She had lost her husband, she had no money, and she feared her children would starve. Conrad knew the monastery had limited supplies, yet he walked to the storeroom, took what little food they had left, and handed it all to her. The other brothers protested. "Brother Conrad, you gave away everything. What will we eat tonight?" But Conrad simply bowed his head and said softly, "If we trust our Father sincerely, we will never lack what we need." That night, unexpected donations arrived, far more than they had given away. Not once, not twice, but every time Conrad gave beyond reason. God provided beyond expectation. Visitors who met him testified to something strange, something they could not explain. Some said the moment he opened the door they felt peace. Others felt a sorrow lift from their heart. Some felt an invisible weight melt away. A few felt sure that heaven itself had come close. They weren't imagining it. Because Conrad did not simply open a wooden door. He opened a spiritual one. His silence carried prayer. His smile carried mercy. His presence carried God. One evening, long after the monastery had gone to bed, Conrad heard a faint knock. He opened the door to find a poor young man shivering. Without hesitation, Conrad gave him his own coat, the only warm coat he owned. When the other friars discovered this the next day, they scolded him. But Conrad answered with a gentle sentence that still echoes through history. What we give to the poor, we give directly to Christ. He meant it, he lived it, he embodied it. And then came the moment that shocked everyone. A man who disliked Conrad, jealous of him, irritated by his kindness, came to the door angry. He insulted him, shouted at him, and even shoved him. Conrad didn't argue. He didn't react. He simply bowed his head and said, "May God bless you." Later, that same man came back. crying. "Brother Conrad, your patience broke my anger," he confessed. "No one has ever responded to me like that." Conrad didn't lecture him, he didn't preach. He just opened the door again, this time for the man's soul. As Conrad grew older, his body weakened, but his spirit did not. Even when he could barely walk, he dragged himself to the doorway to make sure no visitor left unseen. On April 21st, 1894, sensing his death approaching, he whispered, "I will go to heaven now and pray for everyone who ever knocked on my door." Imagine that. A life of quiet service, hidden sacrifice, uncelebrated holiness, turned into a doorway to eternity. Saint Conrad's life tells us something we desperately need to hear. You don't need a stage to be a saint. You don't need attention to change the world. You don't need applause to touch heaven. Holiness is not always loud. Miracles are not always dramatic. Sometimes the greatest saints are those who choose fidelity over fame, quiet love over recognition, service over spotlight. Conrad teaches us that every interruption is an invitation from God. Every stranger is a chance to love. Every ordinary moment hides a divine purpose. Every small kindness echoes into eternity. He lived in the shadows, but heaven itself shined through him. Maybe you feel unnoticed. Maybe your life seems simple, hidden, repetitive. Maybe you serve, and nobody thanks you. Maybe you love, and no one sees it. Tonight, through the life of Saint Conrad, God whispers to you, "I see what no one else sees. I remember what everyone else forgets, and I use what the world ignores." You don't need to shine to be light. You just need to be faithful. So tonight, let the story of Saint Conrad inspire you. Open the door in front of you, whatever it is. Serve the person who interrupts you. Love quietly. Pray silently. Give generously. Forgive quickly. And trust that God will fill what you empty. Because when you open your heart, heaven opens with it.